and word or sentence. And the students repeat it together.
A drill wouldn't be also being like sort of a role play? Like, let's pretend that we're in the market. Or no?
Sorry, what?
Oh, a drill, it wouldn't also be like a role play? For example, if you said the, nope. Oh,
Because a drill is much more controlled.
okay.
Whereas a role play is something that is more open-ended. Involves acting, taking on roles, but it's not as controlled as a drill. Drill suggests a bit like marching in the army. Yeah, it's a very controlled practice activity. What about revise or review? Can you think of when a teacher might do revise or review?
Revise?
Yeah, when might a teacher revise or review? Or in fact, the students can revise or review as well. So this is when a teacher or student looks again at language or skills that have already been taught.
Mm-hmm.
In order to remember it better. What can you remember about contextualize or contextualization? We looked at this initially, didn't we? An elicit model. Look in your TKT glossary. See if you can find examples of when a teacher might do this. Praise. Prompt. Go ahead. What's your suggestion?
I found an example for context.
Or contextualize, right?
Oh, contextualize. Yeah.
It's a verb.
So,
Huh?
yeah. So when teaching the past simple tense, showing learners a series of pictures of a family holiday that went wrong. C, set the scene, set the context.
Yeah, basically, that's correct. But in general terms, it's to put language into a situation that shows what it means.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you described, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's elicit? That's when a teacher asks
Questions?
questions. Yeah, specially designed questions.
To find out the knowledge, right?
Uh-huh. Or gives clues. It's not just asking questions. To get students to give the information.
Mm.
Right, so we're drawing on their previous or existing knowledge. Yeah, it's like activating what they have already in their memories. Model.
Mm.
To model. It's a verb. What the teacher does.
When the teacher makes students repeat certain phrases? Or
Yeah,
certain
that's right, yeah. So teacher says the language for students to repeat. In a drilling. Phrase should be obvious.
Okay.
It's to tell someone they've done well.
Mhm.
And prompt.
It's an idea that will lead to a practice activity to make the student participate or to study, to produce something with the language, maybe.
Not exactly. It's to help learners think of ideas or remember a word or phrase. By giving them part of the word. I tried to prompt you at the beginning of the lesson with the Crucigrama, right?
Mhm.
I gave you the number of words, the number of letters and the beginning of the word.
Mhm.
Or I could give you another kind of clue. All right. So these are kind of important concepts that we're going to deploy in the next activity. So these terms we're taking from the TKT glossary. This part of the session is also going to develop your knowledge of the design and purpose of a range of comprehension and production tasks and activities. So I need to ask you a couple of questions. What do comprehension activities do? What do comprehension activities do?
Helps us find out how the students are understanding the topics or the concepts.
You said understanding?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like if they understand. I mean,
We're talking about, yeah.
mhm.
So comprehension activities.
That's more to
Test.
assess understanding.
Yeah, and to understand, we need to listen or read. So they test or develop listening or reading skills and sub-skills. Sub-skills are like micro skills.
Mhm.
Like reading for general understanding. That's a micro skill of reading. So that comprehension activities, but what about production tasks and activities? What do they do?
They lead the students to produce,
Yeah. But what do you mean by produce?
to write, or to speak.
Right.
Create.
So provide opportunities for students to practice. and extend their productive skills. Such as speaking or writing. Okay, now I'm going to show you a bunch of activities. Okay, and I want you to label the task types. Actually match the task types A to K with each of the activities. So it's on the worksheet.
Is the
That I
exercise 2, right?
It's called Types of Activities for Tasks and Skills Development in your
Oh.
pack.
Mhm.
It's here. Okay.
Mhm.
So you're
Exercise
gonna,
one?
yeah. So let's look at number 1. Students find out information from others by asking questions or using questionnaires in order to practice speaking skills and/or specific language. So which would it be? Would it be guided writing, role play, problem solving, survey?
Warmer?
I don't think it's a warmer.
Surveys.
Yeah,
The D.
key word is questionnaire there. Because a questionnaire is basically a survey. Well, sometimes in TKT you've got to be aware of the synonym. Right? So questionnaire is a survey. So the answer with that would be D. Okay, but I'm going to give you this on a Jamboard. Make it a bit more interactive. Okay, so it's the same activity, but you can keep the worksheet to refer to later. Okay, so we would we're all going to work together to do this. So survey was survey. Okay, so D would be number 1.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'd like you to talk together. Maybe one of you could do the matching and the other people could make suggestions. Right.
Okay.
So into the chat comes the link. You can do it together. Okay, please click on, join the Jamboard.
Then I can do the magic if you want.
Okay, I'll give you a few minutes to do this.
Okay. So number 2, I think it's F. What do you guys think?
Number 3, I believe it's warmer, an activity the teacher uses at the beginning of a lesson.
Warmer. Yes. Text is divided into different parts.
I'm just checking the meaning of jumbled.
mixed up together, all together.
Yeah. So maybe number 4 is jumbled text because they have each one their information and it's separated. So it's about putting it together in the correct order.
Mhm.
Or what do you think?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure about it. Isn't this one jumbled text?
Yeah, I think so. Because of it's not in the correct order. So yeah,
Yes.
maybe we can put it down.
So,
And
okay.
jigsaw, okay, jigsaw because you're putting it like you're connecting the ideas, like the jigsaw that yeah, there's a sequence. Yeah, it makes more sense.
Yeah. So I think we're ready.
Yep.
Good job, man. I was listening and I was learning, man.
Hey, good. So yeah, the first one would be.
He said, yeah.
Okay, I got the answers here. Oh, yes.
We did it at page 1.
Okay, so gonna D is correct, and then it's F.
Mhm.
Chant H is number 3. It's warmer. 4 is K. Yeah, jigsaw reading is like what we just did with the exposure and acquisition. That was a jigsaw reading. Number 5, E. Brainstorming. 6 is J. Visualization. 7 is A. Guided writing. 8 is B.
Okay.
It's a role play. Parts to act out. Classic role play. 9 is I. Ranking. 10. C, problem solving, and J is 11 is jumbled text. Right, so now I'm going to put you into two groups. How about Cisco and Monse, group B. Okay, and I'm going to give you some stickies. 2, 3. Okay, 8 stickies are going to have P on them for production. And 3 stickies are going to have C for comprehension. Right, so you have to work together and decide which are the comprehension and which are the production. Right. Now there's only 4. No, there's only 3 that's comprehension. So I'm helping you a little bit with that. So in this group, it's going to be Bibiana and Sophia, group A. Yeah, so I'll give you a few minutes to work together and decide. You decide which they are. Are they production? Or are they comprehension? Good. Put you into the breakout room so you can talk together. Please join your breakout rooms. You should be able to share in your breakout rooms now, screen share.
Mm, I can listen. Okay.
You see it now?
Yes,
Okay.
I can see your screen.
Okay, so
What do we have to do?
you have to
Sorry, I have
it's fine.
problems with my Wi-Fi.
Okay, so we have to decide if they are production, or what was the letter C, Andrew? Sorry.
Comprehension.
Yeah. So there are 3 comprehension activities and 8 productions. You have to decide which one is each.
Okay, so do you think the first one is comprehension?
Do I think the first one is comprehension? Students find out information from others by asking questions or using questionnaires in order to practice speaking skills and or specific language. No,
it's
that's more
production.
like, yeah, I think that's production too.
I think
Yeah.
you're right, yes.
Okay. So number one is production. Number two, students repeat a phrase, sentence, rhyme, poem, or so, usually with others in a regular rhythm.
That's production. No?
Because they are singing and chanting.
Okay.
An activity that a teacher uses at the beginning of a lesson to give the class more energy.
It could be comprehension, no? It doesn't specify what is the activity, but I think it could fall under the category because it could be just anything, and part of just being anything could be reading and writing, right?
Okay.
Don't you think? Or what do you think?
Yeah. So production.
I mean, it doesn't specify really what the activity is, but it could fall under the category. Oh no? Okay. Okay. So number 4. Oh, okay. Are we on number 4?
Yeah.
Okay. A text is divided into 2 or more different parts. Students listen to or hear their part, only then share their information with other students so that in the end, everyone knows all the information.
I would go with this one with comprehension.
Yeah, because it's a text is divided into 2 or more different parts. I mean, either way, it's reading and listening.
Yeah.
Right? The reading and listening. And then there's
Because they can't be, we only have 3 comprehensions.
Comprehension. Let's see.
I think this one is production, number 10. 2.
11.
And also this one, I think. Which one would you change?
Cheng, yo creo, I think is oh, the time is up. The number 6, an activity with it close.
That one you think it's production?
Yes. Or no.
Yes?
No, I'm not sure.
Like this?
I'm not sure, but we need to change one.
Maybe just number 6, exchange it with number 7.
Yes, maybe.
Number 1, yes, it's production. Number 2, repeat. Production. Number 3, an activity that the teacher uses at the beginning of the lesson. Yeah, that's more energy. I'm not sure about number 3. Or we share. Or can we also oh, now I'm confused. Let's see.
I think you found that a tricky one, didn't you? All right, so let's just clarify then. Which do you think were comprehension? Tell me which ones you think were comprehension.
Number 3.
No.
We put number 4 as the
4,
question
yes.
for
4, yeah. What's the skill there in number 4?
reading and understanding the reading.
Yeah, it could be reading or listening. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's like a jigsaw, reading or listening. Okay, so that was number 4 was comprehension. There are 2 more. Can you tell me which
Me?
numbers you think are comprehension? Anyone?
Maybe number 6,
Yeah, that's right. It's number 6.
because they have to think about what they just of the story they're telling them, so it's listening.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And 11?
11,
Yes.
yeah.
11 is comprehension, that's reading. Yeah.
Mhm.
So just to show you the answers and also the detail about the skill that's being used. So number 1 was production, it was speaking, control practice, less control practice, and freer speaking. F was speaking and control practice, very restricted sort of mechanical practice. Number 3 was production, and it was speaking or freer practice. Number 4 was reading or listening, so that would be comp. 5 is production, speaking. 6, comprehension, listening. 7 is production, that's writing. Control practice or less control practice. 8 is production, speaking, less controlled or freer. 9 is production, speaking, free practice. 10, production, speaking, free practice. And 11, reading. Okay, almost done with these activities and types for language practice. However, we do need to look at the approaches that might be associated with each of these activities. So what we have to do is look at the description of the activity and task and decide which methodology is it associated with.
Mhm. Okay.
So how about number 1? So you've got an activity with a task and a discussion of the task, then leads to an activity to focus on language used in the task.
Task-based learning.
That would be task-based learning, yeah. TBL. Number 2, grammar rule. Students translate a text. That's the
Grammar.
activity. That would be grammar translation, yeah.
Mhm.
Number 3, teacher presents language items as instructions. The students do the actions, and then the students give the instructions.
PPP.
Maybe
No.
total physical response.
Yeah,
Today's
because no, it's TPR because why?
Because the teacher is giving them instructions that they have to follow by actions.
Yes,
Mm.
to show they've understood.
Yeah.
Number 4, there you've got a lead in, you pre-teach vocabulary, there's a gist task, there's a detailed comprehension task. The students give in, then there's a follow-up productive activity. What would that be? It's to do with comprehension, isn't it? Now,
Mm,
comprehension is a skill, right?
Mhm.
So that would be
Skill-based.
Skills-based lesson, yeah. Here it's receptive skills or comprehension. Number 5, there's an activity with a task to see if students can use a particular structure. The teacher presents the new language to the students. Students do another task using new language.
Test, teach, test.
Yeah, because there's a test beginning the lesson, ending the lesson, and there's some teaching in the middle. Number 6, teacher presents the language in context. There's controlled practice activities, less controlled practice, and then freer practice.
Could it be test, teach, test?
No, that was number 5.
Oh, my bad.
PPP.
That would be PPP, yes. Notice there's quite a lot of P's there.
And practice.
Yeah. Number 7, there's an activity with examples of the target language provided. Then there's an activity for students to work out language rules for themselves. Then there's an activity for students to practice the language.
Guided discovery.
Ah, very good. Why? Why did you say that?
Because you're giving the examples first of what you want them to do.
Yeah.
And then they work them. I mean, they have to discover the rules according to the example that it was given. Because it says activity for students to work out languages rules for themselves. So they're discovering.
Very good. Yeah. Excellent explanation, Monse. Yeah. And then 8, there's an activity for students to notice words or chunks of language. There's discussion of the meaning of the chunks and then activity to practice the language. What would that be?
Lexical approach.
Quite right. Yeah. Because the key words are chunks of language, like noticing the chunks. Great. So now we can go on to our, unless there's any further questions, we can move on to assessment types and tasks. So for that, we need our final handout. And there's a little bit of discussion. Yeah. So you've got this one, right? Assessment types and tasks. Let me just show you it again. It's this one. Now, we're going to need this, but first of all, let's just clarify a point. Now, in Spanish, evaluation and assessment are often confused. Now, in Spanish, you use the word evaluación, where in English we would use assessment. All right, so just be careful with that one. All right. What we're doing here is focusing on assessment. Okay, so let's just check in our TKT glossary what the definition of assessment is. Who can give us a quick definition of assessment? Ah, here it is. Found it straight away. Because it's earlier in the dictionary, in the glossary. So assessment, it's a noun. And it's to discover, judge, or form an opinion on learners' ability, achievement, proficiency, or progress, either formally or informally. All right, and we're going to look at different types of assessment.
Mhm.
All right. One common type of assessment begins with T. It's probably what we're most familiar with. Testing. Yes, it's a type of assessment. We'll see what type in a minute. All right, so let's have a look at these points of view. Which do you agree with?
I agree with the first one.
Why?
Well, that helps me. When I record myself, I can notice maybe the way if I speak loud or not very clear, or where am I standing in the classroom.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
The students too.
Yeah. Sometimes they don't like it, do they? Because they get self-conscious. But
Yeah.
I think it's an important thing to do. What about someone else who's a teacher? Montse, you're a teacher, right? Viviana? What about you, Francisco? Are you teaching right now?
No, I'm not. No.
All right. Well, let's listen to someone else's view on number 2. What do you think? I don't like giving my students tests and exams. I think they're demotivating, especially for young learners.
I think it depends on how you approach this tests and exams. I mean, they are important to keep track about the evolution of the student and see their weakness and their strength, about how they're understanding and how they're using the language. But I think we make the exams and tests demotivating when we notice that if a student is like having bad grades constantly. I mean, the test is not the problem, it's how we approach the test and how like if we present it to the student, like it's not like to tell you you're bad or good, it's about saying where do we need to work on.
Yeah.
Then it stops being demotivating.
Sure.
I think they're tricky because if you they get nervous sometimes, and even if they know what to answer, they're nervous, so they just get confused and they don't answer it correctly, but they know the answer. So I don't like giving them tests that much.
No, I mean, on the contrary, because in the school where I work, each week we have to make a quiz at the end of the week on Friday.
Wow.
And it's really helpful because that way the students actually go back to the lessons that we had during the week. They have to go back to spelling and they have to go back to vocabulary, like to make a complete review of what we saw.
Okay, how about number 3? I get students to mark each other's written work. And tell them just to look at it and say what's wrong. I don't ask them to check against any criteria. Don't think they can look for any particular mistakes like spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes. Does that sound like a good idea?
I do not like it.
Okay.
know.
Yeah, it's a type of assessment that's gaining popularity in classrooms these days, right?
Mhm,
Getting the students to evaluate each other's work.
mhm,
Sometimes I think it works better when you're getting them to actually read and look at the content rather than the language.
mhm.
Yeah. And what about number 4? When students are doing a speaking activity, I observe them, but I don't make any notes and don't give marks. Sometimes I talk to students about their strengths and weaknesses. Does that sound like a good idea? What do you think, Bibiana? What do you think, Francisco?
I think it's a bad idea because the students can't study if they don't have notes
Okay.
on your books or your notebook.
Okay, but here it's the teacher observing the students, but maybe just making a mental note, but not a written note, right, of how they're doing.
Yeah, you're right.
I think that's probably what we do anyway as teachers, isn't it? We do this naturally.
Mhm.
Okay, how about number 5? My students choose pieces of work, their best pieces of work, and we keep them in a file, which can be looked at during the course. I know some teachers use this as the way they assess students at the end of the course, but I'm not sure how that works. I once visited a language school in Malaysia, and there the students and the teachers and the parents use this kind of assessment. But one reason is it allows the teacher to give the parents an idea of how well the students are doing, because they can show them this file with the students' work. Do you think that's a good idea?
I think
I
it's
think
a
so.
good idea. Mhm.
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
No, you continue, Francisco.
Okay, I think it's a really good idea. I think it's really good idea. It sounds really good.
Yeah, it's a good idea in principle. It can be difficult to administrate in practice. Well,
I think the problem with this idea as it is presented here is about them choosing their best work. So maybe what we can do to make it a little bit easier is to make a file of certain activities, that are repeated in several times of the same course, and to see how the student is evolving.
Yeah.
Because, for example, if you have a student that is good at in writing,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no use to have it in a file, because at the end of the year, maybe he didn't have much improvement to compare with. But if we have a work of that everybody did of, I don't know, something that is more global, then you can actually compare how we started and how you ended. Like, instead of choosing the best work, choose a certain activity that everybody needs to do.
That's a good idea. All right, so now I'm gonna ask you to read about these different types of assessment. Right, it's on your handout. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 types. All right. Your task here is to match the types of assessment to the comments here. Right, so I think it's important for students to assess themselves. So sometimes I record them when they're doing a speaking activity and get them to listen to themselves. So what type of assessment would that be? of these 8?
Self-assessment. Because they're listening to themselves.
Yeah, but it has to be one of these 8 on the list.
Yeah, there, self-assessment under peer,
Last one.
the last one.
Ah. Would that be right? Are you sure it's not? Is it peer or is it self?
For
I
number
think-
1?
For number 1, is it peer assessment or is it self-assessment? What do you think? I think it's definitely one of those, isn't it, though? Yeah. So I'm going to put you into groups again, and so let's have Viviana and Francisco. Okay, and you've got to match the description and the like definition to the teacher's comment. So actually, you were right, Monse. It was indeed self-assessment. Give yourself a round of applause. Okay, so Group B, I'll have Monse and Sophia working together.
Mhm.
So you need to discuss and match.
Yep.
Okay, so these are movable. Yeah.
Mhm.
And here is the Jamboard coming into the chat now. Please click on, find your Jamboard. Give you about 5 minutes to do this. Shouldn't take you long.
I don't have Jamboard.
Open breakout rooms. Okay, if you don't have, you can't have access to Jamboard, maybe your partner can share the screen and you can work together that way. Viviana, please join the
Okay.
breakout room.
Yes. I am checking off.
Number 5 is portfolio assessment.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think it's that one.
Oh, it's not nice. Oops. Are you in the Jamboard or no?
Yeah, is that I'm having issues with that one because I cannot put it in a comfortable size.
Oh, okay. Don't worry, I'll do it. Okay, did you read them all?
Yeah.
Okay. What about number 2? I don't like giving my students tests and exams. I think they are demotivating, especially for young learners.
They are denominating, especially for young learners. I don't like giving my students tests and exams. I think they are especially for young learners. Number 3 is I get students to mark each other's written work, and I tell them to just look at it and say what's wrong. I don't ask them to check it against any criteria. I don't think they can look for particular mistakes, like spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes. Let me see. So you don't have anything on your screen?
Yes, I can see your screen, Francisco.
No, it's my
You can see my
screen.
screen?
No, it's my screen.
It's the teacher's screen.
Okay.
But let me see if I can look at it too. Hold on.
Okay.
All right.
On number 2, I think is
I don't give my students tests and exams. I think they are demonstrating, especially for young learners. What do you think it is?
it is informal. What about you, Francisco?
Huh?
I think it's
Informal
informal
assessments.
assessment.
When a teacher decides whether a student's doing well or not, does not necessarily set a test or write an official report or give a grade. Okay. When students are doing speaking activity, I observe them, but don't make my notes. And I do.
Or continuous assessment. What about you?
For number 2,
Yes, for number 2.
when it says using the course market grades. The type of test which is different from the final examples. I don't know. I'll have to read a lot.
Okay. What about number 3?
That I am having trouble with those ones because they are like tricky.
Yeah,
So I get
you have to
frustrated.
read it like very carefully
Mhm.
many times to understand what they're asking.
Yeah, so I know that that is what's going to happen in the TKT. So I'm trying to think about it, but I'm having a hard time with that part.
Yeah, me too.
All right. This caused a little bit of confusion, I guess. So we would try and clarify this then. So here's my PowerPoint. Here we go. So first one was indeed self-assessment. Tests and exams are what we call formal assessment. They're often contrasted to the lighter informal assessment in number 4. Right? And it could also be summative assessment, because it's all about summative is all about a test used at the end of the course, like at the end of high school. Yeah. If you haven't done enough to raise your grades during the year, you've got to do an exam. And I know it's a nightmare. I'm going through this at the moment with my son. Yeah. And then the peer assessment is number 3. You got that? No problem?
Yeah.
Number 4 is informal. It could also be formative.
Oh, continuous.
Called continuous, yeah. includes monitoring of classroom performance and contribution. Like, for example, in my son's maths course, he was assessed on his participation, right? That went towards his continuous assessment grade, which was, I think, was a bit unfair because he has problems with, he's got attention deficit and he finds it difficult to follow what was going on in the maths class. So he got a lower grade in participation, which was, I think, was a bit unfair. And then number 5 would be portfolio.
Mhm.
And it can be used as part of continuous assessment. But it could be formal. It could be formal if it's submitted at the end of a course for evaluation. And that's
Then
what.
in that case, it wouldn't be, oh no, sorry, it also say continuous under it,
Yeah.
sorry. Mhm.
All right. So that's what we call knowledge about of methods of assessment. Okay, these are different methods of assessment. And for TKT Module 1, Part 3, you'll be tested on your knowledge of methods of assessment. But in the same part of TKT, you'll be tested on the purposes for assessment. Purposes for assessment, right? So let's just stop sharing, go back to our worksheet. Okay, so here you have this is worksheet 3. And we have different types of test. So we need to know what is the purpose of these different types of test. Yeah. This is the objective here. So let's do the first one together. This type of test is used during a course in order to assess the learning up to a particular point in the course. What do you think that's going to be?
The progress test.
Do you agree, Sophia, Viviana, and Francisco?
Yes, I do.
It's correct, yeah. Okay, so I'll just give you a couple of minutes to answer these individually. I'll check in about 2 minutes' time. All right, time's up. Let's check on this. So number 2, this type of test is used to see how well students have learned the language and skills taught in class. These tests are often at the end of term or at the end of the year. Test the main points of what has been taught in that time. What would that be? Any ideas?
E, achievement test.
It is indeed correct. Yeah. Keywords is like what have been, test the main points of what has been taught. So we want to see what the students have achieved.
Mhm.
Que han logrado. All right. So number 3 is used at the beginning.
Placement.
Diagnostic test.
Ooh. Okay, so we've got some. Why do you say diagnostic?
Because it say at the beginning, of course.
Yeah, but equally you could use a placement test at the beginning of a course, couldn't you? But this one is particularly interested in identifying the level of language to find the best class for them.
To place them in the best class.
Yeah, so I think that's the clue. It's placement. So the next one would be diagnostic, right? So that helps us to plan what to teach. And then 5,
Proficiency.
proficiency. So that's D. Okay, well, we're almost at the end of this session. But I'm just going to give you a little task to take home with you. To do this task, you need to have an idea about what is the difference between objective and subjective assessment. Does anyone have an idea?
An objective assessment would have like a really strict and really
Clear.
I don't know how to say it in English right now. Like to the line lineamientos. The way that you are going to evaluate or assess is like rigid, and it's based on facts of things that you can, for example, your spelling, vocabulary, they have correct or wrong answer.
All right, so yes,
Mhm.
it's either a right or wrong answer, right?
Yeah,
With
that
an
is
objective test, yeah.
objective.
So there's no discretion with the marking, yeah.
Mhm.
So there's a clear right answer and a subjective test. Then
It's going to be a little bit it has more variables in it.
yeah, more
example,
opinion,
the
more
speaking.
evaluation, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So speaking, yeah, a speaking test requires more subjective marking, as does writing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So an objective test is marked without using the examiner's opinion. There's a clear right answer. Whereas a subjective test is marked using the opinion about the quality of the answer. It's not simply right or wrong. Yeah. So typically writing or speaking are marked using subjective criteria. Yeah, because it's very difficult otherwise. Now, I'm going to give you worksheet 4 to do for your homework, and I will send you the answers after a couple of days. Okay.
Okay.
But what you have to do is decide what they're called, these types of activities, and then decide which are subjective and which are objective. All right. So you have to try and figure out what these types of activities are named. Let's do the first one as an example. Is it any idea what that type of activity is called?
Is it gap filling?
Yeah, it's called a gap fill or a close. Gap fill / close.
Okay.
Now, in the close test, the gaps are regular, right? Like every 7th word. Whereas a gap fill is not regular, but selected by the teacher or assessor. Right?
And then you spell close with the C, not with an S, right?
That's with a Z, yeah. Yeah, close. If you look in the chat, I've written it there, it's close. So it's a close. Is it subjective or is it objective?
Objective.
Well, think about it. What could be the possible answers there?
In Paris, the people were much.
It could be different words. Much nicer, much happier, much jollier than I had anticipated, expected. The food, though, was not as excellent or good. Yeah, so there is a variety of different possibilities there, aren't there? Yeah. So is that subjective or is it objective? Yeah, it's more on the subjective end. Yeah.
Okay.
You could make it more objective if you maybe gave like 2 possible answers that you had to choose from each gap. That would be more objective.
But for example, in this case, maybe it would depend on the topic that we're speaking of, right?
Well,
example,
no, it wouldn't. It would depend on the answers that were given.
But for example,
So if you gave 2 answers for each one and they had to choose one, right?
Okay.
So for example, in Paris, the people were much A, politer, B, much angrier, right? Which is the best answer, right? So that would be more objective.
Okay.
Yeah, because angry wouldn't fit because the next word is more polite. Yeah. So it depends how you design the test as well. Yeah. But here it's quite open-ended, so it would be more subjective. The more open it is, the more subjective it's going to be. Okay, so your homework is to complete 2 to 10, and I'll send you the answers.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you very much for coming. I will post the videos as well. Okay. On
Thank
the
you.
Neon. Bye. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.